Well, apparently there's some kind of soccer competition going on someplace out there, overseas. And I woke up to find an amusing little set of things that had to do with this particular sport. Hi, everybody. I'm Bill Whittle here with Steve Green and Scott Ott, and this is your right angle on the strange effects of gravity resulting with the interaction with a Brazilian football player named Neymar. Now, I think you know by now, every 4 years I lose a significant number of fans because every 4 years this, whatever it is, happens. And during that time, I restate my contention that that soccer is, or football, as it's known, is straight up communism. And it's straight up communism because it is anti-American in every way. It's just 1 hour of nothing happening. Americans are about progress. We want yards. We want goals. We want points. We want something. We want to get out there and score some points. The idea of sitting there for 90 minutes and watching a 0-0 tie is disgusting to Americans. Disgusting. If Patton were here, he'd be pulling out those ivory-handled revolvers and knocking people down. But my main problem with this game of soccer is simply the quality of the soccer players and their endless attempts to try and gain a foul by acting as if they got hit when they didn't get hit at all. We all admire a real football player who's been hit head-on by a 300-pound charging lineman, is the same as being hit by a truck, and as they wheel him off the field, he manages to wave. That's a sign of real courage. But what you see here in some of these examples of football players goes way beyond the line. And apparently at this latest World Cup, Brazilian player named Neymar, and I've searched 2 Google pages trying to find his first name. I couldn't find one. That's all you get. Two Google pages is it. So Neymar apparently is the world master of this. And I have to tell you that here is the I think the all-time great championship fake foul call, certainly of this year. Steve, Americans have a word for this kind of thing. We have a number of words for this kind of thing, and most of them we can't talk about on this show.
We can't say that word here.
However, there is a word that Americans would apply to this kind of thing, and that word would be cheating. Because what he's doing is he's pretending to be injured when he wasn't injured, and he's doing that to draw one of those cute little cards for the opposing team. And if you get a yellow card, then you get a red card and you're thrown out of the game. He's trying to get the opposing players ejected from the game. He is lying, and he's cheating. And I think this problem could be solved very simply if every time a referee saw one of these fake fouls, and I'm fully in favor of calling fouls on real fouls.
Of course.
You can apparently, yes, of course.
Otherwise, that's cheating from the other side.
That's right. But this kind of thing, which gets more and more flagrant, why is it, do you think, Steve, that they simply don't just eject this guy?
Oh, wow. Before I get to that, a quick correction. We call it soccer here in the United States, but around the world, they call it a different name that we don't use here because soccer here around the world has the name of another great American sport. And so everywhere else on the planet, they call it kickball, Bill. And I think that we need to call it kickball out of respect for the grandeur of that great European, Latin American game that they play. So about the kickball theatrics, again, before I get to that, let me interrupt myself again. My buddy Matt always knows the coolest stuff, and he showed me a YouTube video. I wish I could remember the name of this guy, but a famous soccer player who went to work out with an American football team, thinking, I play on a much bigger field. I got to run for 90 minutes without interruption. I am a great athlete in great condition. He lost the 50-yard dash to a 300-pound linebacker and went, whoa, I thought I was in shape. But they got 300-pound Americans running circles around these kickball players, and it's really something to see. So when we're done here, I'm gonna get on YouTube and see if I can find that for you. It's just a great bit. It should be more famous than it is, I think, and that's even if it already has 1 billion views. But about this theatrics, what gets me about it, Bill, I can't explain the reasoning behind it. I guess what it is, it's incentives. They get away with it.
Yep.
And so why shouldn't they? But what gets me about it is the bad actingness of it. They're horrible. You see the most famous clip that I know of is the one of the guy who gets literally lightly touched on his shoulder. And they've slowed this down so you can really see what's going on here. But you catch the guy look over at his shoulder to see what happens. And then when he sees that, something is slightly out of place on the fabric of his shirt there, and then you kind of see him do this and decide to fall down, just like somebody had suddenly sucked the bones out of his body. He falls down wobbly into a pile of flesh, and he lays there twitching from literally that. And they do this, Bill, because they get away with it. And we don't do that here, Bill. Watch some hockey. See a guy take a puck to the face.
Yeah, hockey, football,
see
basketball,
a guy, take a puck to the face and do this. That's some blood. All right. We're good.
That's right.
And that's the American thing. We brush these things off because we know it's all a part of sport, to use the word in the really old English tradition of the way, the best way. We believe in sport. They believe in getting away with what they can. And there you have it.
And it's just culturally unacceptable here.
Yeah.
Allow me, please, to recycle a term that we applied to our French allies who are guilty of this, but it turns out it's apparently the entire world, with the exception of the United States of America and perhaps Australia. They're all a bunch of cheese-eating surrender monkeys, and they simply. It's simply intolerable. Now, here's the good news, though, Scott, because really seriously, watching these things as an American just makes me kind of sick. It's so degrading. It's so unmanly. But this guy has spent, apparently, in the 4 matches that they played during the World Cup, he spent 14 minutes aggregate time rolling around on the floor in agony over things that apparently didn't happen to him. And it has finally hit critical mass, and this is the point I want to talk to you about, Scott. Mark Twain said, against the assault of laughter, nothing can stand. In other words, you can criticize things, you can call for, better, more sportsmanlike conduct, you can do all of these things, but when people start laughing at you and mocking you, that's the end. And while you are answering, I'm going to run a montage of clips of people doing the challenge. Which is to, immediately you call out his name, and then as soon as somebody says Neymar, everybody falls down and rolls around on the floor, and some other handy After Effects work, because it does seem that this has finally reached a point where even the world's soccer fans have come to understand that this is just ruining the game.
See, I think you've perfectly highlighted the difference between real football and kickball, as Steve says. In kickball, they have this phenomenon now where people are emulating this player who falls down and rolls around on the ground faking an injury. American football, if you'll remember a couple of years ago, we had people across the country taking a knee in prayer, imitating Tim Tebow, who was there in this whole...
I had forgotten about
this movement of Tebowing.
Pro-Christian movement that was going on.
In a real sport, that's the kind of thing that you get down on the ground for, not wallowing around the ground. And let me just say to these kickball players, CAT scans or it didn't happen, okay? CAT scans or it didn't happen. We want to see. And I think, if this were in the United States, we would have concern because we are concerned about injuries to our professional football players, especially here. Yeah. And so to do something equivalent in the international game of kickball, I think what we need to do is start invoking the grimace protocol. So anytime you get a player who grimaces in pain or falls down on the ground, they immediately have to come off the field. They go into this special tent. They get examined by a bunch of doctors and then have to actually sit out the rest of the game. So I think this is how you put an end to this, which is basically say, hey, the guy's on the ground. He's obviously in severe pain. Let's invoke the grimace protocol. take him out of here. So like we have the concussion protocol here. We do the grimace protocol for that. And I think we put an end to this. And as I mentioned, by the way, in our members only episode, I think the only way soccer is going to make inroads into the United States in the way that it has in other countries is if each goal earns you something on the order of 17 points. Because
Yeah, and as I said on that episode, you've got the right idea but the wrong message, because if you make every goal worth 17 points, you're going to sit there for 90 minutes and see a game that ended 17-0, or 0-0, or 17-17.
Tight
What you need to
scores,
do,
you bet.
what you need to do is you need to, first of all, you need to make the goal about 4 times larger, and secondly, you need to have a large number of very sharp spikes coming out of the football. So
well, and I will say, like as you guys were talking about this at the beginning of this episode, I was thinking, what is it about soccer that elicits such a yawn from me? Because there are other sports that I don't really care about, but if they happen to be on TV, when they come on, I find myself engaged in them. For example, golf. I don't play golf. I don't enjoy playing golf. But the other day I walked through the room and I think my father-in-law was watching a golf match, and this guy made this magnificent like 45 angle turn putt that drained in the golf. And I was like, yes, like I was excited. Curling, like during the Winter Olympic Games, like I found myself watching curling. These guys are sweeping the floor in front of a big stone.
Something was
on the
happening
ice
anyway.
wearing sneakers, And there was excitement to that. But I've been in the lunchroom at work, and these guys are watching the World Cup games. And when somebody does eventually score, I just look at it and go,
I went to a professional soccer game here in Los Angeles, kind of on a dare, and I remember the 90 minutes very well. I remember sitting in this stadium and having people get more and more excited, and the girls are, oh, something almost happened. Okay, and now we're going to go back to the other side of the field, and hey, dude, something almost happened there too, and then back and forth we go. This is our opportunity to shed as many members and fans as possible. And we do it for one reason. The main reason we do this is because we don't have an awful lot of chances to wallow in our own crapulence, and this is one of them. This kind of thing is what makes me so proud to not be a member of any country other than the United States of America and conceivably Australia. And I'm going to keep wallowing in it forever. So I think my feelings about this game can best be summed up in the episode of The Simpsons from back when The Simpsons was funny. So we will leave this with you until we see you 4 years from now, when apparently this thing will be held again someplace.
You'll see all your favorite soccer stars like Arriaga, Arriaga 2, Bariaga, Aruglia, and Pizzozza.
Oh, I never heard of those people.
And they'll all be signing autographs. Woohoo! This match will determine once and for all which nation is the greatest on earth, Mexico or Portugal.